Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jordan Cameron back today with another update. And today is a video that I think a lot of people are not going to like. And unfortunately, as I always like to say, my bearish invalidation was met. And we're going to talk about that today in today's video. We're not going to waste any time today, guys. So, right away, right as we jump into this, right, our thesis has been, right, on this channel since the tariff lows, right, since total market cap was down here, sitting at approximately 2.31 trillion, right, still significantly up from where we are now, still 34% up on total market cap, and at this point, still 23% up on Bitcoin. But something has changed, and we've had on this channel 2 points of invalidation, right? We've had our bullish invalidation, right? And we've had our bearish invalidation, right? And obviously we're going to go over that today, and I'm going to explain to you why my bearish invalidation has hit, and why I have personally, wasn't today, it was yesterday, on the weekly close, have sold 80% of my long-term Bitcoin and 80% of my long-term Ethereum, many of which that not only that I've been holding since the bear market lows in 2022 and 2023, but a lot of which I've been holding since back over here in 2018, 2019, and 2020 when I actually started my channel. So we're going to go over why I made that decision today and why for the first time in, I would say, 6-7 years, I've sort of sold a lot of my long-term portfolio, which I did not do in the last cycle, and I told myself I would do it this cycle. So we're gonna explain why my bearish invalidation has been hit, where my bearish invalidation could change again if something happens. And we're going to go all over those scenarios, guys. So I firstly, I want to say that a lot of people aren't going to like this video, but it's a video that has to be made, right? And I said I would be the first one to come on the channel and explain to you why my bullish thesis is invalidated, and that's fine, right? And we move on to the next one, okay? So obviously, you guys know the 50 moving average band has been my bearish invalidation, okay? We've had 2 invalidations on the channel. We've had my bullish invalidation, which was stablecoin dominance getting to 4.9%, right? That obviously has not been met, right? We've been moving sort of the opposite way since getting relatively close down here at 5.58%. We started to move away. That was the bullish invalidation, which obviously did not get hit. And the other invalidation was our bearish invalidation, right? Where Bitcoin would have to get a weekly close below the 50 moving average band. And this is what we've been talking about since all the way down here in 2025. We've really been talking about the whole cycle, but really in 2025 and discussing that in this cycle, each time Bitcoin has come to the 50 moving average band, okay, whether it was over here in early 2025, whether it was over here in 2024, or whether it was over here in 2023, each of those points marked the lows of the long consolidation, right? The multi-month consolidation marked the lows, we moved higher, right? Marked the lows, we moved higher, marked the lows, we moved higher, but something has changed here, right? And though this may not mean anything, I am under the understanding that history does repeat, right? And considering where we are in the 4-year cycle, right, as we are in November, mid-November of the post-halving year, right, which is typically the year before the bear market typically is for crypto, okay, I think the timing here kind of checks out. So just to kind of explain what this means for me, and I've been explaining this on each one of my videos for the past few months, really, and explaining that if Bitcoin was to break the below the 50 moving average band, that would be my telltale sign that I want to de-risk from the market, right? Still very high up, right? Still for Bitcoin, right, from the lows, still up almost 500%, right? If we go over here to Ethereum, not as high, right? Obviously from the lows, right, up 240%. But like I said, I'm not just selling my Bitcoin and Ethereum that I've been holding since these lows, right? I've been holding Bitcoin and Ethereum since over here in 19 and 20, okay? So still significantly up. And for me, it is a point of invalidation. Why is it important validation? For me, it's because every single time, right, if we just take a look at Bitcoin, that Bitcoin has got a weekly close below the 50 moving average band. Okay, it has been a prolonged bear market, right? It has not been a short bear market. It has been a very prolonged, excruciating bear market, okay? Whether we're looking over here all the way back in 2021, okay, where we had our early 2022. In January right here, we broke below in 44,000 over here in January of 2022. As you guys can see, this candle right here. And from that point, right, though we did come back up and retest the 50 moving average band, that was ultimately the signal that this was going to be a long, prolonged bear market, which we did not get back above that weekly close for approximately 100 weeks or 2 years. It took us for us to all the way get back up to that region over here in December 2023. Okay, if we come over the way back over here in 2018, okay, you guys can see that Bitcoin got a weekly close below the 50 moving average band right there, okay, in 2018. And you guys can see from that point, okay, it was going to be a long, prolonged bear market, right? This one recovered a little bit faster, but we did see significantly lower twice, okay? Whether it was over here in 2018 or 2020, it was a long, prolonged bear where you got multiple chances at the lows, but mostly sideways for the next 2 years, okay? And then you can also come all the way back over here in 2014, right there, right? Where we got the 50 moving average band close, weekly close below, and was a long, prolonged bear market where we ultimately did not see back above that point for approximately 92 weeks, right? Almost approaching 2 years. So that's why, for me, the 50-week moving average close below is significant, right? Very, very significant. And that was my bearish invalidation because each point in the cycle, we did hold above there, right? It was support in 2023, 2024, 2025, but was not support here, okay? And that is my point of invalidation. Now, what we're going to go over today is, are we just going to go straight down from here? My answer is I don't know, okay? That I don't know if we are going to go straight down, if we're going to come back up and retest the 50 moving average band, and that's why I have de-risked, okay? I'm 80% out of Bitcoin, 80% out of Ethereum, and 100% of my allocation still in Zcash, okay? That's it, right? I have 20% Bitcoin, 20% ETH, and right, 100% of my Zcash stack. Just because it's been slightly decorrelated at the moment doesn't mean it won't pull back as well, okay? And I fully expect it to if Bitcoin's going to go lower. But nevertheless, in the short term, okay, what does that mean for us? Well, I quickly want to go over our thesis, what our thesis originally was, okay? Our thesis originally was that we're going to see a blow off top to get everyone into the cycle, simply because that is what we've seen every single other cycle, right? 2021, 2017, we've seen these big, right, blow off top rallies at the top of every single cycle. This cycle, we have not seen it, okay? And that leaves me a little bewildered, right? You probably a little bewildered, and a lot of people thinking that this cycle was slightly underwhelming and wasn't the best cycle, right? That is what it is, right? We can't change that. So we have to look forward, right? We can't hang on what has already happened. We have to look forward. So for me, when I look at, our sort of total market cap trend line since the COVID lows, where we've had bounces on each time this trend line, you guys can see not only did Bitcoin break below the 50 moving average band, but we also have total market cap getting 2 closes, okay, not one, but 2 closes below our, right, COVID line, right, where we've held 5 times. You guys can see now that we're breaking below our more macro rising wedge. I was the other assumption that we would grow up and retest the top, but this is where, for me, the crypto market is still so elevated that this is such a great invalidation for me, right? Bitcoin's elevated, still 500% off the lows. ETH is still 300% off the lows, right? Great time for me to de-risk, right? Maybe it's not for you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you guys my thoughts, okay? And I know a lot of people aren't going to like in the video today, but you guys knew this was coming. You knew if we were going to get a weekly close below the 50 moving average band, I would change my tone, okay? And listen, my tone has consistently been that when this cycle is over, I do think that we're going into the deepest bear market that we've ever seen, okay, for crypto, right? And not only for crypto, but for the stock market, real estate, right? And everything sort of into 2026. That's always been my thought process. So just because, and I want to make this clear, just because we did not see, right, or we have not seen yet, right? It's still not impossible. There's still 2 or a month and a half left in the fourth year of the cycle. Anything could happen in the next month and a half. Okay. Still won't rule this out as being impossible, right? We certainly could still blast off, but just even if we don't, that does not change the fact that I do still think we're going to see the dot-com bubble 2.0 bubble pop, where most of these cryptos, most of these altcoins will go to literally zero, right? I don't think it's going to happen to Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to happen to Ethereum. I don't think it's going to happen to Solana, but I think most of these cryptos are literally going to go to zero, the absolute useless ones. That's always been my thought process, whether we did see this blast up into the 4236 Fibonacci or 10 trillion, or, right, we didn't, right? There's always a possibility, and that's why we always had an bearish invalidation. We weren't just moon boys saying we're going to go up forever. There's no way we can't go down, right? When this bubble does pop, right, whether we do still get that blow off top in the next month and a half, which I think is slightly less likely now that Bitcoin has broken below the 50 moving average band. But we'll talk about in a second how we could still do that, okay, in just a second. But my thought process still is most of these altcoins will trend to zero, and what I think is going to be the deepest bear market that we've seen since 2008 financial crisis. All right, and we'll go over a little bit of that today, a little bit later in the video. But firstly, I want to touch on a couple different things. Okay, I want to go over to our Wyckoff, or our stablecoin dominance Wyckoff accumulation, and the way I look at this is this could just be a higher low, right? And if this is a higher low, this Wyckoff accumulation schematic is still very, very valid, okay? Still extremely valid, where we said, okay, up here, we thought it was going to reach down to 4.91%. Maybe it made a higher low. If this breaks out, and I just want to make this clear, right? Obviously, we're coming up on the 8.77 resistance again, which we've gotten 1, 2, 3 rejections. This could be a short-term rally point for crypto, right? If we get stablecoin dominance reaching up to here and then pulling back, right? But if this does break out, that could be the Wyckoff accumulation. And if we see this type of move on stablecoin dominance, which I've always said, right? You guys can see my schematic that I had here, right? I just got rid of the other arrow, but I always had that we move down to 4.91%, right? And then we get a massive move up. That's always been my thought process. So I always told you guys, I'm not a moon boy. I will admit when I was wrong. Okay, and we will move on to the next because we want to maximize our profits and we don't want to lose the profits that we made in this cycle, right? So for me, I've de-risked because I've recognized maybe this is just the Wyckoff accumulation and this big move up on stablecoin dominance is Wyckoff, right? This Wyckoff accumulation schematic is still going to play out, which would be the correlation of this massive bubble pop for the crypto market, which I still do think is coming in 2026 and into 2027, okay? That's still my thought process. Now, I want to make this very, very clear, guys. I've de-risked, but that does not mean that the market can't bounce. I think in the short term, there's a couple scenarios that we could see, and I'll give you guys the scenarios, right? Typically what we see is when we do break the 50 moving average band, we always do see a rally back up to retest it, right? In 2021, right, we broke below, we came back up to retest it as resistance and then fell, okay? Over here at 2018, right, we fell below, we came back up to retest, right, and then went below. Back over here, in 2014, we went below, came back up to retest, and then keep falling. So what typically is the pattern is we fall below and we find some type of bottom, somewhere. Where would that be? I don't know, right? My guess is somewhere in this region, we find some type of low, right? Somewhere in here, we find some type of low, okay? Somewhere in this previous support block, and we see some type of relief bounce, right? Wherever it is, whether we're already at the bottom or we go lower, we see some type of relief bounce back up to the 50 moving average band, and then we continue lower, right? That's my guess. That's typically what's happened in every single cycle now that we've broken the 50 moving average band. Where I am wrong again, and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong again, I think that's being a realist and someone who is willing to just see the market how it is if Bitcoin somehow, right, from here or from lower, gets back above the 50 moving average band. Because if Bitcoin reclaims back above the 50 moving average band, that kind of changes everything, right? We've never really seen Bitcoin do that. We really haven't. I think the only time where Bitcoin has done that is back over here during the COVID low, where we got above, right? We kind of held it, broke below during COVID, and then got back above. So that's kind of the only time that happened, and we went into a bull market during that. So for me, it's watching for Bitcoin to break back above the 50 moving average band. That is the signal for me to get much more optimistic on the market. I think until Bitcoin does get back above there, it's kind of like, all right, it's not too much to be optimistic about in the market now that we've lost what's been support this whole cycle, right? So, as we kind of move along, all right, I think the message that I want to put out is, though the thesis of the blow off top, maybe not going as high as we wanted, if this is it, right? We don't know if this is it yet, but if this is it, still a very good return from those COVID lows, okay? If you were buying during fear, still a very, very good point to buy. If you were buying the highs, well, never advise buying the highs. You always want to buy the pullbacks, right? Lesson learned. And we look at the next opportunity, right? And we just look at what the market gives. We take what the market gives us. We don't hope, okay? We take what the market gives us. And I think right now, as we kind of go along, we have a market that's giving us Bitcoin a weekly close below the 50 moving average band. Typically not good, okay? We have stablecoin dominance showing some type of wake-off accumulation, a higher low here. If we do get the breakout above 8.77%, that kind of confirms the wake-off accumulation schematic, okay? And as we kind of go along, I've made this very clear that if we kind of look forward to the stock market being extremely overextended, okay, real estate being extremely overextended, I do think ultimately, right, as you can see, global liquidity continuing up, Bitcoin deviating down. The last time we really saw that was, not funny, but funny enough, right, over here back in 2022, right, where you saw global liquidity continue up. If I can get Bitcoin to kind of come up here in global liquidity, there we go. Last time we kind of saw that was over here in 2022. Global liquidity continued up and Bitcoin deviated down, right? Which obviously was sort of the precursor to the deeper bear market here, right? So when we kind of look around, right, I think there's a lot of things that people are kind of hanging to, right? The crypto bill. I'm not a big news guy. I don't follow the news. I strictly follow the charts, which has done me very, very well in the past. People are looking forward towards the crypto bill being passed, right? People are looking forward to more rate cuts. People are looking forward to the end of quantitative tightening, which does not mean that quantitative easing starts right away. I think people have that misconception. Just because QT stops does not mean QE starts, all right? And I think there's a lot of hopes and dreams kind of hoping on those two things. When in reality, we've kind of gotten all the bullish news, right? We've gotten all the bullish news for crypto. What else could there be, right? Could be something, right? Privacy is getting a really big move up because you have a lot of Bitcoin OG whales selling for privacy coins. It's something, right? And that's why privacy coins have done well, but the rest of the market hasn't really done anything. Right? What else is there? So as we kind of move along, right? I don't want this to be a complete FUD video. I don't want this to be a complete doomer video, but I think it's a realist video, right? It's a video that I was really looking forward to making this weekend. I was gone this weekend, so I couldn't make a video yesterday, even though I wanted to. I was really looking forward to today's video because for the first time in a couple months, we actually have something to talk about, right? For the first time since really July, we have something to talk about. And though it's not necessarily what we want, which is Bitcoin breaking below the 50 moving average band, right? As a bull, you don't want that. It is something that is new, right? It's something that is actionable for me at least. So there we are. We take what the market gives us. Bitcoin closed below the 50 moving average band. And I think the next thing we kind of watch for is where does Bitcoin find a local low? If it does rally back up to the 50 moving average band, is that a lower high before it continues lower, just like in every other typical bear market rally, right? And we kind of go from there, all right? We kind of go from there. There's not really much else we can do at the current moment. Like I've said, guys, I've de-risked from the market. You do whatever you want to do. This is not a recommendation for you to de-risk. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Okay. I'm telling you that's my invalidation. So you guys are not blindsided by anything. And if Bitcoin does just bounce back up and we get to 150, 200K, great. Right? Great. I still have my allocation in the market. Okay. And if it doesn't, well, I de-risked. Right? And I have a lot of dry powder to buy in the next bear market after Bitcoin is still elevated almost 600 or 500%, almost 6x from the lows. Okay. And from, down here, anywhere down here, Bitcoin's still elevated 13, 14x from those, 2019, 2020 price levels. Right. So for me, it's time to de-risk. Right. For me, it's time to look forward to the next step. And I hope everyone out there makes the right decision for themselves. And I'm always rooting for the bulls, man. No matter what, I am always rooting for the bulls. I still have a pretty good, allocation in the crypto markets. I would love nothing more than the market just to bounce and go to the moon. Trust me, I make more money if the market goes up. Okay. But that's what I'm doing, guys. All right. So anyways, I think as we look into 2026, I'm still very confident that no matter what happens over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever's left in this 4-year cycle, I still do think what comes after that is a brutal bear market. Okay. And whether we do get that last blow off top or not, right? I think for me, it makes sense to be prepared for that. Right. And de-risking, right? If Bitcoin bounces to 130, 140K, okay, that's great. Another 30, 40%. Fine. Okay. I'd rather be prepared for the downside at that point after Bitcoin's already elevated. So anyways, guys, we could be talking about something completely new next video. Maybe Bitcoin just moons and gets back above the 50 moving average band in a week or two. If it does, great, right? We'll talk about that, and that would kind of invalidate this thesis. That would invalidate, right, the 50 moving average band thesis, right? So anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. You guys know what I'm up to now, and I always want to be fully transparent and admit when maybe our thesis didn't work for this, but I still am very, 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 very convinced that whether the top is in for Bitcoin in the crypto market or we still have higher to go, I just want to make it very, very clear. Whatever happens in the next 1, 2, 3 months, I still do think that this deeper bear market is coming, and I think it's good to be prepared for either direction. Okay, because you never know, right? And I still do think that the .com bubble 2.0, the crypto is a scam days are coming, whether it's in 3 months or whether it already started. All right. So it's been your boy Jordan Cameron. If you appreciate the video, hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And I don't like to have the bearish undertone, but I think when it makes sense to do it, in my personal opinion, it makes sense to do it. So catch you guys in the next video. Let's see if we get any type of rally back up to the 50 moving average band, or if we just continue down. Anyways, been your boy Jordan Cameron. Catch you guys in the next video. Peace.